Evening for our virtual meeting for Reedy Creek Greenway. We're having a little bit of technical difficulties. Unfortunately, County IT decided to do some firewall work this evening, and it's throwing some of our access from our computers off a little bit. So we might have to wing a little bit of the presentation unless we can get a couple of members of our team back on the line. So my name is Bert Lynn. I'm the Capital Planning Division Director for Park and Recreation. Tonight, I'm going to be joined by a couple of my colleagues from Mecklenburg County, Joyce Figueroa, who is the planner for this project, and Jennifer Brooks, who is the project manager. We also have a few other staff on the line, Katie Lloyd, who is the senior planner with Park and Recreation, Chris Matthews, who is the division director for Nature Preserves and Natural Resources, and Greg Clemmer, who is the division director for Park Operations. So I'm going to go out on a limb and say that most everybody on the meeting tonight is more familiar with Zoom than they were about 18 months ago. But for those of you who are new, we do ask that you stay muted throughout the presentation. We will have a Q&A section kind of toward the end. So you'll see in the bottom corner of your screen, the little microphone, the red slash means that you're muted. We do invite you to ask questions through the chat feature, and you can do that kind of throughout the presentation. Some of the questions may be pretty easy to answer, so if we're able to, we'll go in and answer those questions in real time. If not, once we conclude the presentation, we can come back and state those questions and provide some answers to those. So real quick, before we get moving, let's test out the chat feature there. So if you see at the bottom of your screen, the little chat button with the little word blurb coming up. So please type in your name, your zip code, and your favorite place in Mecklenburg County to walk or bike. We'll give everybody a minute to do that. There we go. Let's see, 6 Mile down in the south side, Little Sugar Creek Greenway, Flat Branch Nature Preserve. I like Flat Branch, that's near my house too. Around the neighborhood, in Reedy Creek, Clark Creek Nature Preserve and Park, and the Greenway, very good. The rail trail, like that one. Ribbon Walk in Reedy Creek. All right, fantastic. So these types of projects, you guys keep those coming in, and we'll continue on. So these types of projects take a large team to make sure that everything gets done properly. Banesh is our lead consultant on this project. They're providing landscape architecture, civil and structural engineering for the project. They've teamed with Wildlands Engineering, who's providing the environmental engineering for the project. Froling and Robertson is the geotechnical engineering firm for the project, and CES Group are the surveyors for the project. So with that, I'm going to see, I'm not sure if my colleague Joyce Figueroa was able to get back on the line or not. Joyce, are you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me okay? I'm having a little bit of technical difficulties, but I'm on the phone.
Yep, you're good. So you let me know. I'll go ahead and turn it over to Joyce Figueroa. And Joyce, you just let me know when you're ready for me to change to the next slide.
Sounds great. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We wanted to start this meeting by highlighting some of the interesting facts about the Reedy Creek Greenway site. So this greenway will be located within the Reedy Creek Park and Nature Preserve, all named after Reedy Creek, which runs through the property. About 700 acres of the land for the Reedy Creek Park and Nature Preserve were originally purchased in 1981 by the city of Charlotte. The park amenities were developed in 1983. and the Nature Center in 1992. With recent land acquisitions, Reedy Creek Park and Nature Preserve covers almost 1,100 acres, which is pretty awesome. Within the Nature Preserve, the James F. Matthews Center for Biodiversity Studies at the Reedy Creek Nature Center houses a nationally recognized herbarium that was donated by UNCC with over 50,000 specimens. It houses the most important record of the plant species found in the Piedmont of the Carolinas. Now, long before the park was here, Catawba Indians lived in this area, and Native American artifacts have been discovered from the preserve dating back to the woodland period. After British rule, this land was part of a 100,000 acre land patent owned by King George. And between 1745 and 1767, John Selwyn received a land grant from King George and occupied the area. The land was then sold to the Robinson family, and the Robinson Rock House was built in the late 1700s. The remains of the Robinson Rock House are found in the site and are part of the National Registry of Historic Places. Lots of cool things in this nifty little site. Next slide, please. So what are greenways? Greenways are strips of undeveloped land near urban areas that are set aside for recreational use or environmental protection. We build greenway trails to activate this land as linear parks that connect people and places by linking neighborhoods, offices, parks, schools, and shopping areas. These trails provide alternative ways to move around the city, the suburbs, and the towns, both for transportation and recreation. Greenways are known to promote diversity, health, and quality of life. Next, please. Greenways are among our most popular amenities. Paved walking and bike trails are the #1 requested amenity by the residents of Mecklenburg County, according to a citizen survey completed as part of our 2015 and our current 2020 master plan. Our current master plan calls for over 300 miles of greenways, greenway trails along the creeks and the streams, and 200 miles of urban trails along the roadways and through urban areas. Next, please. Currently, there are more than 59 miles of greenway trails on the ground, and we have a goal of adding 30 miles of new greenway trails by 2023. To accomplish this goal and to meet community demand, we and our partners are working on an accelerated greenway plan that includes approximately 40 miles of funded trail projects currently in design or in construction. This map shows the location of all the projects in the accelerated greenway plan. The blue dots indicate projects which are funded through our 5-year capital improvement plan, and the magenta dots represent 5 new projects that were added to meet community demand and to increase access to our trail network. Reedy Creek Greenway is highlighted in this map, and is one of these new projects that were added. Next, please. Reedy Creek Greenway was added to the accelerated greenway plan to take advantage of property ownership, to increase geographical equity, and to make meaningful connections, such as making Reedy Creek Park and the Nature Preserve more accessible for all. Reedy Creek Greenway can be seen in this close-up map of our Greenway Master Plan in orange, that orange line. The dashed lines show future trails that are currently unfunded, and the Reedy Creek Greenway will eventually connect to Toby Creek Greenway through the future Back Creek Greenway and through urban trails. Next, please. All right, so our schedule. The original alignment shown in the previous map was part of a Greenway master plan that was completed in 2008. This alignment has been revised since as part of our ongoing planning process. Greenway design is beginning now and will continue through the middle of 2022. The project will go into permitting when the design is complete. The project will be publicly bid and then will go into construction, hopefully in 2023. And the construction is expected to take about a year. And care will be taken during the design and the construction sequencing to limit closures and impacts on the existing park and nature preserve amenities. I will now turn it over to Jen Brooks, who will take us through the planning process for this Greenway section. Thank you.
Thank you, Joyce, and hi, everybody. The Reedy Creek Greenway project is preceded by a successful design build stream restoration project that was led by County Stormwater in 2014 to address severely degraded streams on the property. And you can see in this image on the left what the streams looked like before, and on the right, what they look like now. Wildlands Engineering led this effort, and they are on our Greenway team too. Next slide, please. The stream restoration has become a platform for stewardship of the upper reaches of this watershed, ensuring its longevity and care. The phone bracket and hashtag that you see in this image, hashtag New Reedy Creek, designed and installed by our natural resources staff, is a way for the community to observe and document and share the improvements to the creeks over time. Next slide, please. During the stream restoration project, on-the-ground planning work began within Mecklenburg County Park and Recreation. This pink line was the planned Greenway alignment. It was vetted by the community, by internal stakeholders. Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Jen.
Okay, thanks. I heard a little interception there. So this pink line was vetted by the community, by internal stakeholders, and by the stream restoration team, who left gaps in the conservation easements during the stream restoration project for planned crossing locations. However, and perhaps driven by the enhanced stewardship that came out of the stream restoration project, when we came back to design this Greenway in March of 2020, stakeholders within natural resources and the community encouraged us to reconsider this pink line. Next slide, please. We went back out into the field with our design team and natural resources staff to study the best location for the Greenway Trail that would minimize impacts to the nature preserve and improve community access. Next slide, please. This plan shows a few of the alignments that we considered. You can see there are at least 3 different colors on this plan that we tested in the office on paper, and then went out with our team into the preserve in the park to walk and check and really determine together where the best place for this trail would be. Next slide, please. A key piece of the puzzle was that in the interim, an adjacent parcel of land owned by Cox Media came up for sale. And you can see this in orange on the left. Park and Recreation pursued the purchase of this adjacent parcel, expanding the boundary of the nature preserve and allowing for an alternate Greenway route along the perimeter of the preserve. So this was really exciting for the project. Next slide, please. So now you can see the new alignment shown here in purple completely avoids the sensitive riparian habitats in the newly restored creek corridors. Where the Greenway does cross the creeks in 2 locations, it does so along existing roadway creek crossings, avoiding any additional impacts. And now Jeff Ashbaugh and Kevin Westra, our landscape architect and civil engineer design consultants, will describe our Greenway alignment in greater detail.
Hello, everyone. Jeff Ashbaugh here. The Reedy Creek Greenway, shown in purple as a solid purple line, as Jen mentioned, is approximately 3 miles in length. The Greenway starts at the park entrance at Rocky River Road. That's up right there near the red asterisk, and it extends through the park and ends on the southern end of the park near the intersection of Vermilion Drive and Plaza Road Extension by the small red asterisk. Additional points of access are shown as dashed purple lines. Near the community garden, one access point is near the community garden at Rocky River Road, and the other beside the Greer Academy ball field, close to the CPCC entrance on Greer Road. This greenway will provide access to several neighborhoods to the east, to the north, and to the south of the preserve. The green dashed lines, as Joyce mentioned, on the site plan indicate future trail segments from Mecklenburg County's Greenway Master Plan. They are not yet funded, but in the future, this greenway will extend to the north, to the Back Creek Greenway, and provide a connection to the McKee Creek Greenway heading south. The project also includes trailheads and parking areas for the greenways. Next slide. So this next series of slides will give us a closer look of the proposed greenway. We're going to kind of enlarge that overall alignment that we just looked at and take a closer look at it. So again, the main trail is shown as a solid purple line. Starting from the park entrance on Rocky River Road, the greenway will head in a southwesterly direction through the park towards Slider Pond, which is shown at the bottom center of the slide. The trail will be separated from the park drive and follow the existing gravel path near the dog park. It will continue along the existing path to the baseball fields before turning towards Slider Pond and the Nature Center. And near the community garden, there's a short 0.19 mile connector trail that will connect the community garden and neighborhoods across the street from the park. So next slide. These pictures give you a feel for some of the existing facilities in the park adjoining the greenway. You can see the dog park near the park entrance. And then you can see to the right image, some of the existing trails, and that's just down from the park entrance where the greenway will cross the park drive. Approximately 50% of this section of greenway, kind of this upper section along the park drive, will include paving existing trails in the park. And by using the existing trails, we can reduce clearing and grading, which is less disruptive for the park. Next slide. So as the main trail continues south from Slider Pond, notice Slider Pond is in the center of the slide and kind of our point of reference. It will travel along the west side of the park drive in the road shoulder, heading towards the Nature Center parking lot. Near the parking lot, the main trail turns west into the woods. After going a short distance in the woods, the trail turns south, still continuing through the woods toward Plaza Road Extension. And the dashed purple line shows where a connection will be made to the Nature Center. You can see there's a connection for the main trail down to the Nature Center. There's one near Greer Academy and potentially the CPCC campus. Next slide. These photos give you the look and feel of Slider Pond. Some of you might have walked by or rode your bike or even driven right by this pond and didn't know the name, and it's Slider Pond, so that hopefully you recognize it. And the potential access point for the spur trail, you can see that the image on the right there, that's the access point between Greer Academy and the multipurpose field and the CPCC campus entrance. So looking at the picture on the right side, you might notice the yellow sign on the left and the telephone pole. Right in that general area is where the greenway access point will be. Next slide. So continuing south and approximately 2.5 miles from the park entrance, the main greenway reaches Plaza Road Extension. That's down near Bramble Ridge Court. You can see a red asterisk right there. Once the greenway approaches the road right-of-way of Plaza Road Extension, it heads east and generally travels right along the road right-of-way, parallel to the road. And while it will be parallel to the road, it will be located outside the road right-of-way. The road right-of-way is shown by that dashed yellow line. And it will be outside the road right-of-way and have trees that separate the greenway from the road. Potential neighborhood connections are shown by the red asterisks that you see on the slide. And they're proposed at Bramble Ridge Court, Plott Road, and Vermillion Drive. These connections are subject to approval by CDOT. And a parking lot is proposed across from Plott Road. It's indicated by the circle with a P in it. One other thing to note about the greenway in this location between Bramble Ridge Court and Plott Road, Charlotte Water is proposing a new water line in the same general area. And the water line and the greenway will be located close to each other in the same general area to minimize tree clearing in that area. Next slide. So the greenway will pass by an old hand-carved millstone. You can see it there on the left. Some of you may or may not have ever noticed that before. And it's right on the edge of the nature preserve. You can see Plaza Road Extension in the background of this image just to the left. And according to Mecklenburg County records, back in the day, previous landowners tried to sell the millstone, but evidently a dispute arose over the price. And the millstone was never delivered to the intended purchaser. And here it lies to this day. So the idea is to design proposes to incorporate this point of interest, this millstone along the greenway. So another fun fact about the nature preserve, it has over 10 miles of natural surface walking trails within the preserve. And this picture in the center is an image of the Big Oak Trail. Except for a short section of greenway that we mentioned earlier near the dog park and dog ball fields, all of the existing nature trails in the park will remain. So now Kevin will tell us about some of the facilities that you might see along the greenway. Next slide, please.
Thanks, Jeff. Since this project will include a new parking lot, we wanted to show you some examples of our other trailheads throughout the system. The main features of a trailhead may consist of parking, restrooms, drinking fountains, a maintenance outpost, and sometimes small play areas. The parking lot trailhead at Plaza Road Extension will not include restroom or running water. Restrooms, drinking fountains, and other amenities are currently located near other portions of the proposed trail within Reedy Creek Park. Next slide. Here's an example of a recent boardwalk construction along our greenways. For wetlands and minor stream crossings, the trail will transition from an asphalt to a concrete trail surface. A boardwalk similar to this may be used over drainage channels and at the edge of Slider Pond. Next slide. This graphic shows some examples signage across Mecklenburg County greenways. The top left drawing shows some guide signs. These are placed along the path to direct users to connector paths or other important route information. The picture to the right is an example of a mile marker with regulatory sign providing notes on local ordinances or trail rules. The photo in the bottom middle is an example of a diagrammic sign with trail alignment, junctions, and locations of other nearby amenities. These are typically placed at trailheads or other significant junctions. The final photo in the bottom left is an example of an educational sign. This is placed in significant historic, natural, or other identified locations. These often provide photos and narrative related to the surroundings. Next slide. With that, we'd like to thank you so much for joining us today. Bert Lynn will help facilitate questions from the chat and from those who raise their hands to speak.
All right, so I'm going to zoom back, let's see, into the presentation so we see kind of the overall map. And then I haven't gotten any questions in the chat yet. So if anybody has any questions, feel free to type those there. I will say this is the alignment that we're presenting tonight is the third alignment that we've looked at for the project. The initial master plan alignment actually comes right through here, right by the Nature Center, but it would impact the most naturally significant part of the entire nature preserve. So when prior to the stream restoration project coming through, another alignment was looked at to try to create kind of as direct a connection as possible. But the concerns that we had was that it was creating a division within the larger natural space that we have here. So by routing around the edge of the nature preserve into the newly acquired property, we're actually providing much better connectivity to the existing neighborhoods to the south of the nature preserve, to the schools, to the west of the nature preserve and park, and then within the nature preserve and park itself. David Kingsbury says it looks good. I appreciate it. All right, we got a question here. Jen, I think I'm gonna push this one to you. At Reedy Creek Community Garden, is there planned parking or is it considered within Reedy?
We are coordinating with the community garden now and with internally within Park and Recreation to investigate what kind of parking accommodations we can make at the community garden. But our intent is to, I would say, to enhance what is there. So we're still, as we described, as Joyce described, we're still in the design phase of the project, and that's part of our process is understanding what's appropriate in that location. But it will be something different than what's there now.
And with this project, you know, we're taking advantage of the infrastructure that we already have associated with the park, the nature preserve, with our existing parking areas, our restroom in the park, and then the parking and the restroom at the nature center now. Let's see. Laura had a good question, and Kevin or Jeff, this one's going to be for you. Is the road just going to be widened, or is there going to be a separate trail along the road? And the area would be kind of right in here as we kind of approach the road that goes toward the nature center there.
It is an excellent question. I'll be glad to answer this. So you're right, Bert. There are a couple of areas where the proposed greenway is very close to the existing park road. And I can think of, let's start up here at the park entrance. This is an area where we come off the sidewalk. It's right at the start of the greenway where we connect to the existing sidewalk network up by the dog park. So in this area, the plan is to separate the greenway from the road. It will have a little bit of separation. It will still be close. Some areas very close, and we may separate it with a curb or something of that nature. It may only be a few feet, but we will try to get a little bit of separation. And then as we move past the dog park and then cross the park drive and start getting close to the softball fields, headed towards that lower parking lot at the basketball court, that will pretty much follow, the alignment will follow the existing gravel path there. And if you're familiar with that area, it's clearly separated from the road. but we will cross the Park Road again. There's some actual striping there at that location. Maybe when you're riding by, as you approach that intersection, and then take a right and head down to the Nature Center. We will cross back, go through the woods. It's still away from the road there. But right above Slider Pond, from Slider Pond all the way down to the Nature Center parking lot, we will be very close to the road in that area. It may actually be separated by a curb or just a couple of feet from the roadway. So it will be real tight right in that area. The greenway will be wide, but we're trying to keep the greenway close to the road so that we can be more environmentally sensitive and avoid clearing more trees and grading. So I hope that answers your question. And if not, feel free to chime in on the chat.
All right, let's see. We did have a question. I missed it. And I thank Katie for sending me a text to remind me. Someone asked what the project budget is. Jen, do you know the overall project budget?
Oh man, Bert. That's the one question I'm not prepared to answer off the top of my head. I don't want to give you the wrong answer. I don't want to say the wrong number and cause confusion.
Okay, I know I've got it, but I can't, I'm sharing my screen, so I can't go and grab it right now, but I will find it and I will add that back into the chat.
Sorry, Bert.
Nope, not a problem.
The person asking the question.
We'll find it. We'll find it. Let's see. Alan had a question, not Greenway specific, but show a circumference road on the map. Will this road be in the park or a public use road? My guess is he is referring to the road that's on the eastern edge of the nature preserve right there. That is a proposed thoroughfare road. I think it's part of the Eastern Circumferential Road that is on long-range plans by Charlotte Department of Transportation. Alan says, yes, that's the road. So that at this point is exactly what it's shown right now. It's a dashed line on a map. I don't believe it is on any funding models currently, and those models, I believe, go out to either 2040 or 2045. So it doesn't seem to be a high priority project for Charlotte Department of Transportation, but in building our infrastructure here, we wanted to make sure that we were taking into consideration anything that's planned currently right now, whether it's nearby or far from now. All right, I'm not seeing any more questions come through. So I'll ask if anybody has anything that they would like to share. There's a way that you can go into the participants page and raise your hand. So if you know how to do that, that'd be great. If you can't find that, then I would ask that you unmute and ask your question.
Bert, there are several questions listed in the chat. I'm surprised you're not seeing them.
Oh, did some more pop up there?
Yes, there is a whole line beginning with one after David Kingsbury, more information from Allison. So it's at 6:32
yep.
After
yep.
Katie Lloyd. And then there seemed to be a series after that.
Yep, that's what we've been answering over the last few minutes. Evelyn's got her hand raised. Go ahead, Evelyn.
Yeah, I wanted to know how you've asked us to come on. We're getting knowledge about this and what's going on, and this is great news. But how is this, by us being here, going to affect us?
Could you be more specific?
Like, what's the purpose of setting up this meeting? Besides just giving us information on what's going to be done and what we foresee for the future.
That's what this meeting is for. It's to give you an idea of what we've got planned and to gather any feedback that you might have on the proposed alignment.
Well, my feedback is I love it, and this is great news.
How many are going to call?
Glad to hear it.
That's why we're having this meeting.
Yes, I agree with that, Bert. May I read to you the questions? I don't believe you're answering the same questions that I'm seeing in front of me.
Okay.
One is there going to be water, like a water fountain and so forth, near the community garden at the proposed parking site? And then the question further is, as Jen explained, that what exactly is going to be next to the community garden is still in play, and still it's part of the discussion process now. But on the map, only one parking area is shown along Plaza Road extension.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe another one was mentioned by the elementary school.
So we wouldn't have a parking area near the elementary school. We do have an access trail in that point. Oh, let's see. Do that.
So there's only
you're
one
correct.
Designated parking area.
So we've got one new designated parking area that was down at Plaza Road extension, but we would utilize the existing parking that we have at the Nature Center and then at the ball fields up near the dog park. The dog park parking is really small, so we wouldn't really do that because it's always full. But the parking lot across the street there at the baseball field and at the basketball court, typically there's quite a bit of room in those two. So we would use those primarily as our parking.
So just to get a big picture thing, you're trying to utilize existing infrastructure as much as possible.
That's correct.
Got it.
Yeah, that keeps our project costs down. It keeps our impact to the site down. And I think it's just a better use of what we already have on the ground.
I'm sure the people in the Nature Center really appreciate that.
Let's see. I got the total. Just under $8 million is the total project budget for this project. So that includes all construction costs, all design costs, permitting, 1% of the project that goes to public art, everything that's involved with it.
So there's a question about access.
Mm-hmm.
The access points are shown on the park side of the road. What kind of pedestrian safety measures will be used so the people in the neighborhoods can get across the road safely?
So that is part of what Jeff mentioned a little bit earlier, and I'll let him unmute and take that. But we've got to work directly with CDOT to see what options we have and to make sure that we can provide that safe crossing there. Jeff?
Sure, excellent question. And there's multiple potential access points. First, let me take Rocky River Road. If I recall, real close to the community garden, there is an existing access point. There's a light pretty close to the intersection, and there's an existing crossing point already there. I think it might even be signalized. Kind of going from memory here. So that would be the crossing point for all of the neighborhoods on the north side or northwest side of Greer Road and Rocky River Road.
Very good.
Go ahead.
You remember correctly. That's the intersection of Rocky River Road and Greer Road. It's about almost a half mile north, a quarter mile to a half mile north of the garden site and the neighborhood next to that. Right now, the area is quite undeveloped. There's a farmhouse across the road. So it's a bit of a hike. But yes, you're right. Your memory is excellent.
And generally, the Department of Transportation, they like to see crossings at the intersections. Anytime we refer to those crossings that are not at an intersection as a mid-block crossing. And typically, DOTs do not allow those mid-block crossings. While they may be more convenient, the safest point is at the light. And that's what we're trying to encourage, crossing at those locations. Now to the south along Plaza Road extension, there's 3 access points shown at intersections. More than likely, the Department of Transportation would not allow us to have 3 crossings there. So if I had to guess, maybe Plot Road is the logical point where we will be talking with the Department of Transportation. It's kind of the one in the middle. So it's centrally located, and we'll be trying to get the crossing there. So it's still subject to approval, but that's where we're leaning at this time.
May I show you something on the map real quickly? Can you see, looking along Greer Road you can see the first two access points, one next to the community garden, one to the entrance to the park,
Yes.
and another down at the elementary school.
Mm-hmm.
There are crossroads and a neighborhood right straight across in the middle, in the midpoint, across from the forest. So it's right there where your arrow is. There and just next to it actually is the entrance to the neighborhood. If you go slightly north, there's an entrance there, right at that point. You may want to consider them because of the kids at the elementary school. That, I mean, it's up to, like you say, very interesting point about DOT. I didn't recognize that. It's,
Right.
That's very helpful.
Anything in the right of way, it's kind of their territory. So we have to follow their guidance there. And we certainly will do that. But that's a great suggestion and observation. We appreciate you sharing that.
All right. I'm checking. Let's see. We had a thank you for engaging the group, the gardeners at the community garden. Let's see. What are the current thoughts for parking enhancements at the community garden trail to ensure gardeners will continue to have access without having to wait for a parking spot to open up? Already discussed this question with Joyce and Jennifer and wanted to see if we've gotten any new or current ideas on that.
I can take that, Bert, if you like.
Sure.
We did discuss some alternatives at the meeting that we had with the community gardeners, who shared with us what works functionally for them, which areas get very wet during certain times of the year, which we would consider wanting to improve. And so we talked about a couple of options, and our design team and our team internally together with the designers are studying all of those options. And so we have, a single option hasn't emerged as the solution, but again, as part of our design process, we'll continue to evolve and study the best location. Does that answer your question? Sure.
All right, let's see. Do we have anybody else who has a question or a comment they'd like to share?
Bert, quick point of information.
Yes.
The newly purchased area is all going to become nature preserve.
Yes.
Thank you.
Let's see. Yeah, the purchased area here has been incorporated into the nature preserve. That's correct.
And the route of the greenway won't really follow the creek in this case. It'll be going through the woods and overland.
That's correct. Yeah, we actually wanted to avoid some of the creeks in this area, mainly because the creeks are centrally located within the nature preserve. And so rather than bisecting the nature preserve, we wanted to kind of circumnavigate. And so, yeah, we do have a section kind of going through the woods here that goes along the existing topography. It's not stream side.
I think that's awesome because of the wonderful job that's been done on that creek restoration. I think that's a great call on your part. Just my opinion.
Yep. Appreciate it. Let's see. What's the schedule for future greenway along Greer Road? That's a good question. That is not a funded project right now, David. It's one that does not currently rank very highly, I don't believe, because most of that is going to be along property that we don't own or have easements on quite yet. And the way that we typically rank our projects is based on the amount of land that we have. So compared to other undeveloped stretches of greenway trail that we have in the county, it's not within the top 25 or 30 projects. All right, I'm going to flip to the final slide very quickly. because even though this is our public meeting for this project, we still want questions and concerns or comments that you have. So we've got a website set up, publicinput.com/Reedy Creek Greenway, that you can go to. And I believe Joyce's contact information is there, as well as Jen's contact information. You can leave comments directly on there. If you have friends who are interested in the project but weren't able to join us tonight, then we're going to post a link to the video of the meeting. So everything that we said that we've recorded will be on there on YouTube for you to go and review and listen to. And if other questions come up, feel free to reach out to us, Joyce or Jennifer. Their email addresses and phone numbers are here. We also have our contact information on the publicinput.com site. If all else fails, just call Park and Recreation 980-314-1000 and ask for myself, Bert Lynn, or Joyce, and we'll be happy to take your call. So unless anybody has anything else they'd like to share or state, I very much appreciate your time. I also appreciate your patience at the beginning of the meeting as we were trying to wrestle with getting kicked off our computers and having to move to our phones. But luckily we were able to navigate it and get everything worked out. So thank you all for your time. We'll be around for a few more minutes if anybody else has any other questions.
Bert, I just had one comment.
Oh, go ahead, Linda. Yes.
Linda, hi. In regards to this wonderful new greenway, I'm glad that it went around the edge instead of straight through. But will there be signs to encourage people to not ride their bikes through the rest of the greenway? I mean, the
Yes.
nature preserve?
Yes. Yeah. Let me go back one slide. So as part of our wayfinding for this particular project, and we have certain circumstances that are very unique along some of our existing greenway trails, we will be adding signage here that the only place where people are allowed to bike when it comes to the nature preserve is on the greenway trail. We still don't invite cycling within or mountain bikes within our nature preserves on the trails, mainly due to the impact that they have on our natural surface trails. It makes it really difficult for our staff to go out and maintain those trails. And it ruts them up and makes it difficult, particularly, you know, a day or two after a rain. So we will have some unique signage along this section of greenway that we typically don't have because we're typically not within such close proximity of a nature preserve.
You know, when you go into a parking garage and they have one of those bars, you need one of those at the spot so they come through and they hit their head and they're like, oh, I can't go any further.
Yeah, I don't know that the county attorney would approve that, but
No.
I like the thought behind it.
Bert, or maybe someone can answer this. The extension shown with the dotted line that goes past the community garden will be a 10-foot wide greenway trail. Much like the rest of it's not going to be natural surface. It'll be a paved, that little section right there.
Correct.
Will be a paved 10-foot wide standard greenway trail.
That's correct.
And there's an access point right there, but actually it's probably going to be displaced up to where that intersection is, correct?
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that we're looking at when we're looking in this area is exactly where this trail wants to go. Does it make sense for it to come up to the lighted intersection where Rocky River Road comes in and meets Career Road right there? I think it probably does because you've got pedestrian crossing there and pedestrian signals there. And that would go ahead and extend access to those homes that are kind of along Rocky River Road.
Right, and so the purple dots might swing up to meet that point.
Yeah, it might do something more like that.
Yes, right.
Than that, yeah, correct.
Great, and that green dotted line is right now a city sidewalk.
That's correct, yes.
Right, it's pretty heavily used. It's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Thanks, Don. All right. Well, unless anybody else has anything else they'd like to share, I very much appreciate your time, and look forward to seeing you on the trail in a few years. Thanks, everybody.